Good evening, everyone. My name is Attorney Noise, and I'm here with my husband, Juan Hidon Sanchez, here at Noise and Associates. Um, we just want to welcome you guys to our podcast. And tonight's topic is about VAWA, humanitarian visas based upon a self petition of VAWA.
Good evening, and thank you so much for joining us wherever you are, whether you're in California, in Hawaii, Florida, Virgin Islands, Puerto Rico. We can help. Tonight's topic, again, this is Deportee's Corner. This is your podcast where we discuss the stories of immigrants who have left their adopted country, the U.S., and have been deported back to their country of origin. The hope of this podcast, again, is to discuss topics of interest to the general public, things that we see on a day to day here at the office, and how we can help support families through sharing of this educational information. And tonight's topic is a very important one. Again, as you can see here, the topic of the week is humanitarian visa, VAWA for victims of domestic violence. So, what is domestic violence?
Domestic violence could be categorized as inter-partner relationship abuse, whether it be physical, psychological, emotional, sexual, financial. So domestic violence is a broad spectrum.
And I think, when we speak about domestic violence, most people think about, spousal relationships. So, a little bit about VAWA, right? So it was formed back in 1994. It was enacted by Congress.
Wait for a moment. This is for educational purposes. This is not legal or advice. If you really have a question pertaining to your immigration status, our number is on the website and the podcast is 203-572-6748. Again, it's 203-572-6748. But as you were explaining, VAWA was enacted in 1994. Sorry, continue.
No, absolutely. And that's a very good disclaimer. Again, we just hope to educate and inform people. It may not be that every example that we discuss may apply to you, but it's just this is like a community forum. We are trying to just discuss topics. Hopefully that more people will interact a little bit more, ask questions and examples. Yeah. We'll definitely continue these conversations each week, and we would love to discuss topics and issues that are affecting our community. And I think that this one, domestic violence, is something that affects us in everyday life.
Yeah.
And there's a VAWA was passed by Congress and signed by the president back in 1994, the Violence Against Women Act. But it's not just limited to violence or domestic violence towards women. It's also a protection for men who live either in relationships, again, with their spouses or same-sex marriages as well. Who else qualifies for VAWA apart from spouses?
You have children that are abused by their step-parent. You also have parents who have U.S. citizen children that are over 21 that are being abusive to the parent. And you also have non-abusive parents who have no status, whose children was abused by their U.S. citizen or green card holder spouse. They also can benefit from VAWA.
So I think the best way to go about this is kind of going through examples of each one. So what would be an example of, I'm a U.S. citizen child and I am abusing my undocumented parent, mom or father?
Well, one of the most simple one is to say, mom and dad go to work. You want money, you want shoes, so every money that mom and dad work, you take their money. That's a financial abuse. You basically controlled how they spend their money, even though you are the child and they're the parents. You also emotionally abuse them or say, oh, if you don't buy me this or give me the money, I'm going to call immigration on you. And those things become abusive or put them out the house.
So, and I know that, some people are going to hear this and say, well, back in Jamaica or back in Dominican Republic, that would never happen, right? But the
Yeah.
reality is that, kids can be disrespectful
No matter where
no
they
matter
are.
where you are. And the reality is, again, when you add the layer of immigration, again, a parent who is afraid, who doesn't know their legal rights, doesn't know what options they have, having a child threaten them can mean the difference between, other siblings being without a parent.
Yeah.
So it comes to a point where, this parent will be willing or tolerate the abuse because they have other kids to take care of.
That's true. And then some of the time the parents is taking the abuse because they have been in this country for maybe 25 years or however long, and this is the only country they know. And at this point, they feel like if their child is their only hope, and if the child doesn't file the papers for their green card to adjust their status, they can't get legal in the U.S. So they will put up with whatever the child do and say to them.
That is definitely very true. Children of immigrants who came to this country do have the ability to petition for their parents. So the immigration consequence or the fear of the possibility of being deported is definitely one of those situations where that child can manipulate that mother and that father. And again, if this is your story or a story of your neighbor, family, friend, someone you know who is going through this, please feel free to share this podcast of this week's topic. Again, it's on VAWA, Violence Against Women Act. Again, it's not only violence towards women, it's also violence towards men and even parents, as we just heard. Now, when it comes to that issue of, a child threatening a parent, what would be the best advice as far as how to handle that type of aggression?
Um, the best thing is to tell the parents is seek help if you feel that the threatened by that child maybe harm you, is to call the cops or find other resource, a safe haven to go to. Depends on where you are. There are a lot of shelters, not an organization that will provide home for you or maybe a night in a hotel or something, but don't stay in that situation. Seek help because there's help out there.
But I think one of the main issues that parents may be afraid of is, hey, I don't want to call the cops on my child. I don't want my child to, have a criminal record, or is he going to get in trouble? Or even worse, as we were going to be discussing with these other examples, if the police comes, I'm the one who's undocumented. I'm the one who's going to get arrested. I'm the one who's going to be deported. And then again, what's going to happen to the younger siblings?
Yeah.
Or who's going to pay the rent? Who's going to cook? Who's going to work? I mean, there's so many factors, so many different instances that, and layers that can happen in these types of situations. And there's also a cultural component,
Yeah.
right? Where in a lot of cultures, if you're going through family issues or domestic violence issues, you don't really speak to people about what's going on. You're very fearful, and you also don't want to be judged, because the first thing someone's going to tell you, well, why don't you just lick him? Why, send him back to Jamaica, send him back to the yard, and have somebody else train them out,
Mhm.
But the reality is that that's also abusive, and it's kind of like a very tough situation to be in.
It is because is like you said, it's cultural in every aspect of immigration in some form. When you deal with domestic violence or inter-partner relationship or a parent-child relationship in that section, and a lot of people are told that whatever's happened at home stays at home. You don't let your neighbor know what's going on in your house, and you kind of work it out by yourself or with your family, and you can't show weakness. And if you're saying my child is abusing me, they're looking and say, oh, but you're the parent. You should be able to be the one controlling or you're the more superior one because you're the parent. Why are you making your child talk to you that way? Or why are you doing that? But they don't understand the psychological and emotional aspect of going through all those different things when you have an immigration issue over your head.
Absolutely. And, again, if you know anyone who is
Yes.
going through this problem, please feel free to support them. I think that, culturally too, we tend to feel like, well, that's your house, that's your business. We tend to stay away. We have our own problems. I don't want to have an opinion. Or even worse, the person is embarrassed, or they may overreact to you even trying to offer help. So it's a very sticky situations, especially when it comes to what we'll talk next, which is now, spousal relationships and spousal abuse. So what are some of the types of abuse that either genders can experience during intimate partner violence relationship?
Um, Again, that's like verbal abuse.
So, for instance, what would that be considered?
So verbal abuse, you're basically calling the other person names out of their biological names. You're saying that they're no good, or you're calling them lazy, or maybe making fun of their English if they're not from this country and English is not their first language.
Hmm.
That is kind of a verbal abuse. I'm reading from a chart that we have created, so that's why I keep looking down. But also, it's kind of like one of the things is to.
Hmm.
Sorry, technical issues. Is attacking his physical appearance or her physical appearance.
Hmm.
That is that's verbal abuse, and it could go both ways.
So it's kind of like, maybe like saying, hey, you're fat, or, you need to go work out, or kind of, anything that's kind of demeaning the person, humiliating the person.
Yeah.
So again, most people think when it comes to domestic violence that it's just physical aggression, like pushing, slapping, kicking, hitting. And those definitely are. And we're going to get into those too. But again, the law here in this country protects you from different types of abuse. So even though if, in the Dominican Republic, let's say, I'm used to just yelling at my wife or embarrassing her in public or in front of her family, and vice versa. My wife is just used to talking to me any way she wants to, treating me any way she wants to, making me feel inferior, right? A lot of this relates to immigration status. Again, there is help for you. There is hope for you. There is VAWA that can help you. So VAWA as well, I think we need to maybe just inform the public, right? Is that it allows you to adjust status within the U.S. So what exactly does that mean, and what other benefits can you get from VAWA?
So with VAWA, it does allow you to adjust status in the U.S. So if you came into the U.S. on a green card and you overstayed, not a green card, a visa, and you overstayed, and you were married to a U.S. citizen or a green card holder, and you are been a victim of abuse, whether it's physical, emotional, psychological, sexual, or financial abuse, you can apply for VAWA, adjust your status on your own without that person knowing that you actually applying for a VAWA.
So this is completely private and confidential.
Yes, it is confidential. Only person who will know that you applied for a VAWA is you and USCIS and your attorney and anybody else that you told. So your spouse or your children will not know, and the immigration will not go after them and ask them, say, did you abuse your mom, or did you abuse your stepson or your wife or your husband? With that adjustment of status, you can, while waiting for them to make a decision on your VAWA, you can get a travel document that if in emergency you need to go back home and visit a loved one or someone, you would be able to go while your petition is pending. And also for work permit and social.
Now, so this is regardless of whether I came in through the border illegally, or let's say I came on a visa and I overstayed, or what other scenarios could there be, and could I benefit from a VAWA?
Well, one of the good thing about VAWA is that if you come to the border illegally, you can stay in this country and adjust your status without have to going back home to your home country. You don't need a waiver for that unlawful entry. VAWA is one of those humanitarian visas that will give you that adjustment for the green card, give you the work permit while you're waiting, and the social, so you can now legally work and pay your taxes and be a part of the U.S. American dream. Because everybody wants to be able to have their documents at work, buy a home, and provide for their family without looking over their shoulder. And that's one of the things that benefits of VAWA. It helps you. Another benefit is that if you have children that are outside of the US and they're under 21, when you file your VAWA, they will become a derivative beneficiary. So if your vow is approved, then they also would be able to have a petition to go to the embassy and come in with a green card.
So pretty much then VAWA can benefit whether you are here in the US and also outside of the US.
Yes.
So if if I have a wife in the
Well,
United
you have a
States,
wife.
well, if I have a wife, but I'm still not in America, right? And I'm constantly, like, we discuss being verbally abused, financial
Yes.
abuse. For instance, whenever I don't behave, say, I'm not going to send you no money. I'm not going to support you. I'm not going to send money for the kids. Pretty much coercing me to manipulate me, to control me in every single way, even though I'm abroad. So I will still be able to benefit from VAWA?
Yes, you would, as long as you can show that you and your husband, her wife, had lived together for a period of time while they, say, for example, they come back home to your home country and he's there for 2 months, 3 months. It's not just a random 1 week visit, but they're there for at least 2 or 3 months to show that you were living together for a period of time. You can qualify, and the abuse happened at that time. You can qualify for VAWA, even though you're outside of the country.
Now, I also see, so when it comes to financial abuse, since we were
Mhm.
just talking about, again, that's another huge one when it comes to being abroad, depending on a spouse, or even here in the US, because I don't have a green card, I don't have no papers, I don't have no work permit, no social.
Yeah.
I may be working a job under the table, earning probably less than minimum wage, which, by the way, you may want to check out our previous episode on wage theft
Yes.
if you're being paid less than the minimum wage. And I am financially dependent upon my wife. My wife, for instance, I see here, let's say, takes my salary. She makes all financial decisions. She doesn't let me have a bank account, or she monitors my spending, sees everything on my bill, or then questions me. Hey, why were you at Walmart on, February 1st, 2023 buying diapers, or why is there a Western Union transaction here? Why are you sending money to your family? All those things could be considered abuse under financial.
Yes, all of those situations are considered financial abuse because it's control. Because that person is controlling what you can do, and that is considered financial abuse for VAWA.
So then definitely it has to deal with just almost being like a subclass citizen in some way. It's
Yeah.
kind of like having someone holding over you, the financial freedom, and not allowing you to kind of live freely. So it's almost like you cannot make any moves without this person questioning you, maybe pressuring you, or even taking your money, right? So now, in the case of, for instance, those people who their spouse takes their money, and because again, they know better, or they put all the bills in their names, right?
Mhm.
Those that would also be considered then financial abuse from what I'm seeing here.
Yeah, it will be considered financial abuse because they're controlling everything. So that means they're not making you part of the relationship. They're basically kind of treating you like a child or like I said, a subpar person because they're controlling the narrative of everything. You have to ask them for money if you need to buy something, or if you're going to send, like I said, send family money. You have to basically ask. It's like you're asking them for permission to use your money that you just worked so hard for.
So then it's definitely a tense situation, and then financially is one of the main reasons why people kind of remain in these toxic relationships. Because if again, you're earning less than minimum wage, maybe you don't know your way around in America, the system. You know that your spouse is helping you pay rent, buy food, bring the kids to school, transport you, bring you back and forth to work, as maybe you don't have a license. It's like an overall, it's like you're suffocating in this toxic relationship, to the point where you can't really move, or you feel that you need this person to be able to survive, because financially you're so dependent on them. So, and what advice do you give those men and women, and even parents and children who find themselves in those types of financial situations?
again, is wherever you are, you have to search your community. There could be resources out there for you. Because, for example, in Connecticut, they have numerous organizations, nonprofits that provide shelter, food, maybe other resources helping you how to get from one location to another safe area, and to see whatever public assistance that are out there that you can apply for. You don't have to stay there and continue to be abused. You can seek help. And not when you seek help, it doesn't mean that you're going to get deported, because a lot of these organizations don't disclose information about who comes to seek help from them.
So if you need food, if you need clothing, if you need shelter, transportation, maybe even medical care,
Yeah.
there are organizations in your community that helps. Again, this is regardless of whether you are in New York, in California, the
Connecticut.
Connecticut Department of Social Services. It may go by a different name in your state. You are able to help. You are able to receive help. So I know here in Connecticut, there's 211. Some other states it's 311, 411. Pretty much general help line where you can receive services, especially when it comes to mental health. Now, what is your from your experience, right? When you the mental health impact of these types of relationships, these types of abuse, what do you see mostly here coming through at the office?
The mental health is one of the biggest aspects, because we are so engraved in our culture that we don't see beyond what we know. And when someone is you need help, and then when they finally realize that they need help, they have to rebuild themselves, and they have to continue to go through therapy to understand that no, you are victorious, you are stronger than you actually feel. Or don't let what the person, your spouse or your step parent, tell you or say about you. Those are just not right. Those are not who you are. um, so we always encourage our clients to get mental health, but also at the same time to continue that, because
To kind of break the cycle of violence,
break that cycle.
escape those dangerous situations. Because again, if you are exposing your children to a violent home, to a constant arguing, constant unsafe situations, you're really kind of teaching them that it's okay to put up with those types of things. Which reminds me, we definitely would love if you guys share this video. We would love to give you a cup. We also have water bottles, as you can see up here. That's a little treat from us for listening and for sharing their information. Again, we are a firm of immigrants for immigrants. This podcast, Deportee'S Corner, again, is to bring you stories. And one of these stories that maybe we should share is the worst case scenario that people face, right? And that is that I, as your husband, abuse you, and then you call the cops, but you don't speak the language. Or you're so afraid that I just come in and I say, no, I may hit myself. I may scratch myself. I threw myself on the wall. I say, no, I'm the victim here. You have to get her. You have to deport her. And then all of a sudden, next thing you know, they charge her for domestic violence. They charge her for battery and assault. I'm become now the victim because I've manipulated the police. I've manipulated the system, and now forced or made it seem like I'm the victim. And now my wife is deported. She's back in Jamaica now, and she's no longer in the States. She's no longer protected. And I think that's one of the number one thing that people fear when law enforcement shows up, or you're in the courts, that because you're an immigrant, you won't be believed.
And that is true. A lot of times people do say that they fear to call the cops, because they fear that if they do call the cops, they're going to be the one to get arrested, because their abuser tell them, if you call the cops, they're not going to believe you. They're going to believe me. I'm the U.S. citizen, or I'm the green card holder. You're the illegal immigrant. You're the one getting deported. They're going to call ICE for you. And that put that fear in them. So when they do call the cops, they don't know how to talk to the cops. Sometimes they would dial the number and then hang up.
Yeah.
There are situations where there are stories that you will hear that they were in so much fear that they called the cops. They feel the courage to call the cops. And the moment the phone said 911, they hang up. And when 911 called them back, they don't answer the call because all they're hearing is that you're going to be the one that get arrested.
So,
you're the one that hit me.
So in a lot of these situations, again, whether it's a child abusing their parent, spouse abusing, a wife or a husband, or a U.S. citizen or green card holder, right? Because this is part of what this is all about. It's about U.S. citizens and green card holders who are abusing members of their families.
Yes.
And the manipulation, the control, the psychological abuse, which is our next one in line. Let's discuss a little bit about some examples of psychological abuse, because again, they put, like they said, the fear of God in people, right? Where you feel so, this truth has been so distorted about what your rights are, what the reality is, that you are in a fight or flight mode where you actually stand still. You put up with the abuse because maybe this person filed for you and you're waiting for your documents to go through, and they tell you, hey, if you leave me, you're not going to get no papers.
Yeah.
Or, hey, you have to put up with this because this is the only way I'm going to file papers.
Or they take your documents and rip them up in your presence and throw them in the garbage. That is also a form of a psychological abuse. Or they say that, oh, if you call the cops, they're going to deport you and I'm going to keep the child. Or I'm going to take the child. If you call, I'm going to get the kid. You're not going to get the kids. And if you have a good relationship with your children and love your children, you don't want to be separated from your children. You're going to sit there just because you don't want to lose your child.
Right.
Because it's like, oh, you're going to get deported. The child is a U.S. citizen. I'm going to keep the child. You're going to I'm going to stay here with the child. And you don't want to. So you sit with those psychological abuse. They will harm your pet.
And then that's also speaking about pets too, right?
Yeah,
some people pets are like their kids. But in the sense of, using something you love, something you care about, to exert that power, that control, that manipulation over you, so that you feel like you can't even escape. Yeah. So you are willing to tolerate and to put up with abuse and just humiliations because you want to preserve your family too. You're worried about, again, what is your family back home going to say if you're a divorcee, if you divorce, or if you leave your partner, or even worse, you may have situations where people are telling you, hey, that's husband and wife, that's how it is.
That's normal.
This is normal. You have to put up with the abuse. And that is one of the worst things that can happen when, again, you are in a place where you are feeling so vulnerable and you extend your hand, you're reaching for help, and someone just kind of slaps your hand away as you're reaching and tells you, you need to tough it up. You need to suck it up. You need to just put up with it.
Yeah. And then, because one other thing about physical abuse, right? People think it's just like me hitting you or that. But no, one of the things for physical abuse is that driving reckless while drunk. Your spouse driving on a highway or anywhere with you in the car, and he is drunk or she is drunk and just driving crazy. That's reckless. That's like a physical abuse. That's an assault with a deadly weapon, because that's like, and if some people will try to jump out of the car, get out of the car because they don't know if you're going to crash. And that's a form of physical abuse.
And again, it's placing you in danger, the kids in danger, maybe your pets in danger.
Yeah.
And you just kind of feel that you have to just put up with it. But again, if your loved one, your family member is in this situation, please feel free to call. Our WhatsApp number is on screen, 203-572-6748. Again, we help families throughout the United States and internationally. As you're learning, VAWA can help you if you're here in the U.S. or if you are abroad, okay? So if you are in the Dominican Republic, in Honduras, El Salvador, it doesn't matter. We can help, right? As long as you have a qualified relationship, you're married to a U.S. citizen or green card holder, or again, in the case of a child who's abusing you, over 21, U.S. citizen, green card holder, abusing a parent. Or
No, for the child, it has to be a U.S. citizen.
U.S. citizen, sorry. And for a U.S. citizen or green card holder spouse who abuses your children, not maybe directly you, but your children as well, you may be able to qualify for help. And again, this information is educational for educational purposes. If you find yourself in this situation, please seek help.
Yes.
First and foremost, mental health help, and then the help from a legal team to assess your immigration case, maybe get a restraining order in place, a protective order in place, definitely get you the support again, get you a shelter or get you housing, food, clothing, transfer your kids from school districts, transportation, anything that's going to empower you again to break the cycle of violence that a lot of people have been living since COVID hit.
Yeah.
Because COVID has definitely placed a lot of financial strains in families, but also, when we were all locked up,
yeah, it forces everybody to
just
be in
in
the
one
same
place.
area.
So sometimes even kids who had an escape or breathing room going to school now are finding themselves in this toxic home environment. Or it might have been that the abusive wife was now laid off, and she's stressed. Now she's drinking, she's getting high, doing drugs, and taking it out on the family. Okay, so all these situations, again, these are things that in our community is very difficult to speak openly about what's happening, and we suffer in silence. We're going through a lot of difficult things, and we don't feel like anyone can help us or that there's anyone there who's going to believe us.
Yeah, that is true. It's and it's the problem of trust, because the person you love and trust is the one now abusing you. So how can you trust a stranger who you don't know? And that's one of the biggest things, that trust, because I can't trust you if I don't know you, but this person I love and put my trust in is now my abuser. And one of the things is that this week our topic was on vow and abuse, domestic violence. And I was following the City of Bridgeport website where I see where the police chief coming next week, their topic is on domestic violence, just to show that this domestic violence is a real issue within our communities. And especially one of the things that we do see a lot is that a lot of men are victim of domestic violence, but they don't speak up.
And definitely, it's very difficult, right? Particularly because we understand, right, the statistics based on the experts, right, are that women are the ones who are mostly affected by domestic violence, as reported to the police, to the courts, seeking protective orders, restraining orders.
Yeah.
Most abusers are men who are involved in the system. But we also know that there are hidden in the shadows many men, many men, not like 50%, but who are suffering in silence, who are afraid to come out because someone's going to make fun of them.
Yes.
Someone's going to tell them, hey, you're the man, you wear the pants in the house, or how you let your wife do that to you. They may even question your sexuality or your orientation. And I mean, in same-sex marriages as well, kind of, humiliating and making fun of the person for being abused.
Yes.
It's another one. It's kind of like saying, well, you're the man, you're supposed to do this. Or in case of a woman, you're the woman, you're supposed to put up with whatever I say because I'm the man in the house, and you just need to just shut up, be quiet, and do what I say, and don't ask no questions.
That is the way it is. And being that I'm a Caribbean and from Jamaica, and other Caribbeans out there will understand that it says the man is supposed to be the man, tough. You're not supposed to show no weakness.
You're the king of the castle.
Yeah, you're supposed to be the tough one. And then because they're grown up from a little child being taught that get up, you're a boy.
Don't cry.
Tough it out.
Men don't cry.
Yeah. So it's, even though they're going through so much, they don't have nobody to talk to or to tell, because they're afraid that you're going to look at them like weak.
And you honestly feel isolated. And one of the main things that we have kept coming across is with men are women who abuse men financially.
Yeah.
They, blame them in the sense of saying, hey, we're struggling financially because you can't get a good job, or you're not trying enough, or you need to get another job, or or even worse, sometimes you have women who will show up to people's jobs and create a scene because they're jealous. So for instance, if I'm a mechanic and I'm working on cars and I have a female customer, my wife all of a sudden sees that and she comes and attacks me, attacks the customer, breaks the car, and now I have to go out of pocket to fix the car.
Yeah.
Okay. Or if I'm, doing construction, I'm painting a house, my wife comes in and sees that I'm talking to the homeowner, she will go ahead and break a window. Okay. Or damage my car, causing further expenses. And then I'm afraid of calling the police, particularly for men. And again, this is one of the main reasons that we suspect that men cases are underreported. Men are afraid that when the police comes, they're going to believe the woman because they're strong, right? They're the ones who could do most harm. And a lot of men are afraid of reporting the police for that same exact reason, because women lie. Men lie too, but women lie.
Yeah.
Especially when it comes to, self-harm, which will be some situations that we have heard of where the woman makes up stories, starts crying, says he said he's going to kill me, or he choked me, he punched me, and it's all false. So one of the best advice that we can, I guess, give people is to just grab your phone and immediately start recording the minute that you see that you're in a situation, or start, whether it's video or audio recording, and saving your messages, the nasty text messages, the nasty social media messages, to be able to, again, prove the pattern of abuse, because a lot of these situations is about manipulation, power, and control.
Yes.
And again, you have to make sure that you're taking care of yourself, because whether you're a man, you're a woman, you have to make sure that you are gathering evidence, right? Because again, the most scary thing that can happen is to have the neighbors, let's say, call the police shows up, then a situation happens that can get out of control, and then now this man is arrested, has to go take domestic violence classes or anger management, or even worse, gets picked up by ICE because of domestic violence, and now he finds himself in deportation proceedings. And there are many men who have been deported to their home country because of false police reports that have been filed.
Yeah, because I met with someone recently, and we were just going through their history, and the person is saying, me and my wife had a little argument. The police was called, and I got arrested. The police said, because I was called, because they were called, somebody got to get arrested. And he was like, it was just so crazy that I wasn't the abuser nor the victim. I wasn't doing anything, but I was the one got arrested out of the two of us. And we both were going back and forth to each other, but the police just chose him to arrest him. And that's the thing you said. Many times, the police, when they come, they're not looking at the woman as the abuser. They're looking at the woman as the victim.
And then you add to that, right, the layer again of financial abuse, where the man is saying, hey, the cops are going to come. They're going to ask me to leave the house. Where am I going to go?
Yes.
I have nowhere to go. There's hardly any shelters for men, especially with men and children as well. There's a lot of folks who need help are actually placing hotels because there aren't any, shelters for men and children. And again, if you're facing with, hey, something's going to happen, or she's getting violent, I'm just going to tough it up. I'm going to just put up with it because I don't have nowhere to go. And again, that goes back to the financial piece and the psychological piece, again, because if I'm dependent on her for papers, I may feel like I have no way out. Yeah. And that goes into the emotional abuse, because my wife may tell me, hey, you're not going to find anybody like me. I'm your only and number one choice, right? And that may, again, psychologically and emotionally makes you feel that it just puts you down. You're humiliated, you're embarrassed, you're ashamed. And again, for men, we just don't talk. We feel isolated, we feel judged. And even when we do speak up, sometimes our friends or our community may just laugh at us. So that prevents a lot of men from coming forward and really addressing their feelings or addressing their experiences. But we know you're out there. Yes. And again, if you know of anyone, your family, friend, maybe your brother, maybe your father, your cousin, Anyone who you know is going through a situation like this, please share this podcast with them, regardless of their legal status. I think we have to just educate ourselves, make sure that we are providing and sharing this information. Again, our phone number is 203-572-6748. You can also shoot us a WhatsApp message. You can write to us on social media, on Facebook, Instagram, WhatsApp, TikTok. What we're trying to do again with this space of DEPORTEE'S Corner is to bring you stories of immigrants, bring you everyday stories that affect our community, and that unfortunately a lot of us, because we're afraid, because we are not educated on these topics, are afraid to explore legal options. And again, VAWA, Violence Against Women Act, which again applies to men as well, is a way of obtaining a green card, work permit, travel document, your social by yourself without leaving this country, without needing a waiver, without needing to do consular process abroad. You're able to do it all here, confidential, okay? Yes. And right now, the estimated time, what is currently the estimated time for VAWA?
Estimated time about 3 years. But in that 3 years waiting for them to make a decision, you can again get that work permit and a travel document, just as something as an emergency tool, that if you need to go, something happened and you really need to go back home, this is one of the things that will help you get to go home if you haven't been home in, say, 21 years or 10 years. It is, while your VAWA pending, you have that opportunity to be able to go back and see a loved one, your mom or your dad that you haven't seen or only talked to over the phone or video chat. When we see our clients that go get those documents and they're able to go back home and just experience and the excitement that they feel, we also feel proud and excited for them because they got out of the situation, the abusive situation, and seek help. That's the first step, is to realize that you're in a toxic situation and you need help, and then seeking that help. Because if you don't make that first step, we can't help you. The therapist can't help you. No one else can help you, but you have to make the first step. And there are so many resources out there, so many places. Because we do this work, we get to learn a lot about the different resources that are out there for our clients who are victims of domestic violence. And when we say there are resources, we really mean, just like what Juan was saying, for men, there's not much shelter for men. But most of these shelters, I know for Connecticut, I don't know about other states, but I do know in Connecticut, if a man is a victim of domestic violence or inter-partner relationship abuse, some of these shelters will pay for a hotel to put them up in the hotel. So you don't have to think, I'm going to sleep in my car or I'm going to sleep on the road. No, there are resources out there. You just have to make that first choice. Like, just take the initiative. And that's what you have to do.
And as you're seeing on screen, these are just some of those VAWA cases that we work. We've been able to obtain for people work permits, yes, their social, travel documents, green cards. Again, you don't have to remain in silence. There is help available for you. You can travel back home. You can have redemption. They can also be healing. Yes. Again, because this is part of why, another aspect of this is that a lot of people want to protect that abuser. Mm-hmm. And this is why we would love for the community to get mental health support, seek, spiritual guidance as well, to save their marriage if it's possible, right? If both people are willing to work it out to heal the family.
Yes.
And this won't mean that this person is going to be affected, right? Because again, it's confidential, it's private. Mm-hmm. Now, with VAWA, again, it's such a great resource. Again, humanitarian relief for those people who really feel like their backs are against the wall. We are able to help. You can see here in the video, we've been able to have so many families have been able to be blessed through this process. And, we would love for that to be your story. Yes. We would love for you to be able to go back home and kind of have redemption, break the cycle of violence, and not allow, your kids to grow up in that toxic environment. Because again, you guys deserve better. And we know, you can see in our Facebook, we have client testimonies who have been through some of these situations, men who have stood up and say enough is enough. We don't want to be abused. We want the law to protect us. I don't want anyone to uh, coerce me because of my immigration status, to
Yes.
abuse me, to make me
Make
feel
you
less
like
of a
you're
person.
crazy. Because one of the thing in emotional abuse is that they make you feel like you're going crazy, and because they're constantly using the psychological, the emotional aspect um, of this whole control. They will take your, say you're from the Dominican Republic or Jamaica or whatever, and something that you hold culturally value, they would take those items and break it or throw it in the garbage or hid it from you. And then you make and telling you that it wasn't there. And those things are like making you feel like you're going crazy when you know for sure, like, no, I had it there. Those are the mind games that they do use. Um, and those are things that we're saying, like, no, if you're going through those things, you are married to a US citizen or a green card holder. And even if you are married to that US citizen and green card holder and you got divorced, but the divorce is less than 2 years and you were abused during that time. And that was part of why you could file a divorce, or you just got divorced, you couldn't stay in that relationship anymore. You could be helped by VAWA if you're within a 2 year period, because VAWA allows you to file the petition on your own if you were married and then now divorced, but the divorce has only been 1 year. It gives you up to 2 years. So if you've been divorced less than 2 years, but you were abused, you can still file for VAWA on your own and still find redemption, even though you're no longer with that spouse.
Absolutely. And again, if you know of anyone, family, friends, anyone who can benefit from this podcast, this information, please feel free to share. We will more than love to hear from you guys. Again, this is just another video just from this week. Again, more documents for more families who are able to again be reunited, to go back home, to have some healing after suffering abuse. Some who have been reconciled, others who unfortunately, have had to separate. And again, we always would like, you to do what's best for you, what's best for your kids, your safety first and foremost. And this is what this is about. This is why we shouldn't let it be a taboo. We
Yes.
shouldn't allow our cultural perceptions about what's allowed in my country or what's allowed in your country to predominate. The reality is that this country has laws to protect you if you're a victim of crime and if you've been a victim of domestic violence. Again, this applies to abusive US citizens or green card holders. Now, if you don't have any papers, what option do you have if you've been the victim of domestic violence?
You have no papers of the control and saying that the spouse is a green card holder or citizen?
No one has any documentation, no legal status. You're from Jamaica. I'm from Jamaica. We both here,
You want to be
undocumented.
Jamaican?
I love Jamaica. But yes, we don't have no papers. Nobody got no papers. Like we both afraid of calling the cops on each other. So we're just putting up with each other because we don't have no choice. We say, hey, if we call the cops, we don't know who's gonna go, either you or me. And then that's another situation where if there are kids in the home, we don't want to leave.
Yeah.
We don't want to call the cops on each other because who's gonna stay home with the kids? We don't want the kids to go back home where things are so tough and rough.
Yeah.
So we'll both put up with each other for that time period.
Not to make fun of it or be light of such a serious situation.
Right.
If, like you said, both of us have no paper, but one of us was being abusive to the other, you can also call, and there's children in that home that could be affected. You could probably be potentially eligible for a U visa, which is a crime visas. If you have been a victim of any crime, whether the person is a U.S. citizen, green card holder, or they have no papers, and you were a victim of a crime, you call and make a report, you could potentially apply for a U visa. That's another topic that we did cover in prior podcast videos that you guys can watch and see. Share with your friends and families if you know anyone who are going through those situations. You don't necessarily have to be a U.S. citizen or green card holder, if you've been a victim of a crime or even witness a crime, you could potentially get a U visa, and then with that, you can get a green card along that line.
Absolutely. So again, if you, any loved one is suffering because of domestic violence, please extend an olive branch. I know that we don't like to get in people's business or have an opinion. We have our problems of our own, but just imagine the torture that a person who doesn't know their rights,
Yes.
who's not educated about this type of process, this type of humanitarian aid, is putting up with things that are unnecessary.
Yeah.
There's a way out. There's a way to get immigration status because of this. There's also resources like shelters, food banks, clothing, transportation, help for a deposit on a new apartment, regardless of your status, medical help,
Yes.
mental health help. This community has to support each other. Don't stay silent. If you see something, say something. Okay.
Yeah, speak up.
You may just be saving a life. You may just be saving a child from living in a toxic environment. So we cannot be afraid as a community to talk about these things. Again, regardless of what our cultural values and beliefs are, we are in the United States of America, the land of the free. I know this country is not perfect, but there are laws to protect you. And VAWA is one of those laws that if you can just take advantage of it, if you hire an attorney, regardless, you could be in Hawaii, you could be in Florida, you could be in Texas, in Ohio, anywhere within the United States. And as we learned tonight, even if you are abroad and you're being abused, this is something that can help you. And we would like to instill, again, trust in the community. Do not be afraid. Do not be afraid that you're going to get deported, right? Just please make sure that you reach out, that you get help, that you seek an attorney or a law office or a nonprofit, that you know that there's options available for you.
Yeah, no, that is very much true. There are options out there. It's just that when we don't know, and two, for some people, they feel that they don't have anywhere to go. Sometimes some of your community churches, those are nonprofits. They may have food and clothing, shelters that they can help, or maybe they can have a donation and help you get, like Juan was saying, donation deposit for a home, for you to get somewhere safe, or maybe put you up for a night or two in a hotel. There are so many resources out there. There is just a lot of help. But if we don't spread the word, domestic violence is a very serious thing. There's a lot of people who believe that they have to stay in these relationships, and they end up dying in these situations. And you don't want to know that your neighbor or your friend or a family member was going through those things, and then they pass, and you say, oh, if I didn't know, or if I did do this. If you know now is the time to help them, because it's a very serious issue that is, since COVID, like Juan said, in 2020, domestic violence calls went really high, and a lot of people are continuing to be abused right now. They are in so much situation, but they're afraid to talk.
Now we see a couple of comments here, and we appreciate everyone who's watching. Greetings to everyone who's commenting. As far as resources, again, we will leave in the comments. Again, there's 211, there's 411. There's also several 1-800 numbers. There's help for sexual violence. There's help for domestic violence as well. Here in Connecticut, there's many hotlines where it's confidential. There are many websites as well that can offer great resources for the community. Again, for you to escape that situation, and again, most importantly, is your safety.
Yeah.
And then medical help, mental health help, and then the legal will come, right? But you need to take care of those basic needs, those things that are preventing you, keeping you trapped. Again, whether you're a man, a woman, a child, or even a parent being tormented by a son or a daughter, there is help out there for you.
No, that is so true. And we do appreciate you guys that are watching our videos, sharing, liking, and commenting. We just want it to be very informative, educational, and to help people understand that there is so much more in immigration. There is that fear of deportation, but then there is hope. It may seem like there is no hope, but there is hope, but you have to seek it. It's always like I know it's Black History Month, and I'm thinking of a Bob Marley song, but Bob Marley said you have to free yourself from mental slavery, none but ourselves. So right now, if you're in a domestic situation, no one else can free you but you. And that's something that is very important to drive home, is that you have to make that first step.
And happening, believe it or not, it is just getting more and more tense for families. A lot of uncertainties, right? So the House GOP, this is from Politico. House GOP is trying to impeach Mayorkas. Mayorkas is the Department of Homeland Security chairperson who oversees. He's the chief that oversees the border. And as many of you know, this past year, it's estimated that about 3 to 4 million people came in through the borders. There's about 2.5 that came in and were inspected, or the Border Patrol agents detained. There's about another, who knows, 2 or 3 million who came in, and no one knows, uninspected. No one knows where they are. Now, this is not to say, because a lot of people have this misconception too. Most of the illegal or illegal migration comes from people with visas who come in and stay, or overstay, or students who come in and overstay, or people with employment contracts who come in and overstay. That's a huge part. I know that they want to paint a lot of, obviously there's a lot of fentanyl and weapons and, human trafficking. We, that's not to minimize that. That's definitely real. But there's also a illegal immigration happening. But as far as, the House GOP looking into impeaching Mayorkas, is definitely going to create just more tensions, right? Because there's already so much uncertainty about immigration and what's going on, what's going to happen, that to have this department be, the instability can create or damage the morale of the thousands of men and women, Border Patrol agents that serve and protect our country. It is important, again, that we support them as well. They're only doing their job, right? And having such a shakeup, and the fact that it's just political. A lot of it is, the resources aren't there for them to be able to do their jobs because Congress hasn't really, passed a law or immigration reform, which a lot of people are hoping for.
Yeah.
And this is why, again, you shouldn't wait for Congress to act. You shouldn't wait for your local politician to promise you that there's going to be a solution. You should proactively seek help.
Yes.
You should look into what solutions are available for you and not think that you can just wait this out, that you can just, one day it's going to happen and one day you're going to be able to go back home. That is a mistake. A huge mistake that we see here at the office is, people coming in, not seeking help, not educating themselves about their options. And then unfortunately, once they find themselves
in removal
proceedings or arrested and deportation, it's just too late. It's too late to really offer competent legal help and of course the money for you to have in hand to pay an attorney, because when you're being deported, what you're thinking about is, how you could send a little money back home to be on your feet when you're back there. And even then, of course, we understand that things are not easy back in our countries. After you've lived such a long life here in America, you have kids in America, you may have a house, you may have a car, you may have a business, and to think that you have to abandon it all, is definitely life altering.
It is. It is very life altering, because, like, again, this is all for the last maybe 20 years, 10 years, and just being faced the reality saying you could be sent back home and you don't have nothing. You don't understand the culture there anymore. You still have information because you may see what's going on through the Facebook or social media, but you have not really lived there. So you kind of don't know what it's like to integrate into that community anymore because you haven't been there. And that sometimes for a lot of people is a culture shock, even for the deportees, because there are a couple of deportees that we would talk to. And it's like a cultural shock because they go back and like, I don't know this place. I don't have any family here. I don't know friends. I don't know no one.
And I mean,
And
and the humiliation, right? Because
yeah,
what they always hear is like, well, you then foreign, and now you're back here. No, you see, my Jamaican's not good.
yes, no.
I was in America. Now I'm back to this. I was in America. Now I'm back in, back home. You wasted your opportunity. If that had been me, I would have done 10 times better. And a lot of times people don't know. People assume that deportees are just because of drugs and crimes, and it's not the
Yes.
case. You can be a deportee because you violated immigration law. Like I
Yeah.
said, my wife called the cops and false a fake report on me, and now I'm back deported. Okay, or it could be a situation where an employer owed me money and didn't want to pay me and called the cops
I
on me.
me.
So, or ice on me. There's so many situations. And again, we just have to educate ourselves about the reality that deportees face. And again, this podcast, Deportees Corner, is exactly that. We would love to hear your story, stories of your family, your friends, people that you know, to really share this. To yes, absolutely. We have a comment here that they're being stigmatized, and that is so true.
So
Again,
true.
you don't know what happened to that man, to that woman, that they're back in their home country, and then the struggle of being culturally American,
Mm-hmm.
and then being back home where everyone, nobody wants to give them a job, everybody looks down on them,
Yes.
discriminate them. It's to the point that many of them turn to crime. It makes me think of that movie Shutters, Top Shutters. Even though I know he was deported because of drugs and crimes, but it's kind of like, if even with children, psychologists say, you are what your environment kind of breeds of you. So if you believe in people, if you believe in your child, if you believe in your spouse, you're able to change your thinking about them, and they can then do better for themselves. But if I just think negative of you or judge you without knowing you, you're going to become exactly that same thing that I'm describing, out of anger and frustration, because
Yeah.
your back is against the wall and you can't get a job. So you will turn to crime. You will turn into, going down that wrong path. And again, as a community and as even our country's government need to do a better job supporting those returning citizens, because after all, they are not foreigners. They're back from our home country. There needs to be more done for those folks, to support them, to educate them, get them skills. There's, a lot of what we've heard with deportees, maybe not so much in Jamaica, but a lot of them, or even so maybe in Jamaica, a lot of them work in call centers. It's one of the booming industries for deportees who are sent back, is because, they have the accents. They're able to tell, like the culture and those exchanges, and they're really good at sales and marketing
Yeah.
and in call centers. And that is, one of the things that industries like that should be invested more in, so that again, these people can have some dignity and we can support them. And of course, there's also a way of coming back to America after being deported. And maybe that should be another show.
Yes, that's another short.
But thank you so much, everyone, for being tuned in, for interacting with us. We definitely will continue these conversations, these topics. Thank you so much for being part of this conversation with us. Thank you for interacting, everyone who commented. We
Yes.
definitely love to hear from you. Love to hear what examples and stories you know, so that we can share them here in this program, and that people, again, will find themselves in our podcast, Deportees Corner, learning from the mistakes, from the situations and experiences of people who've been in America and are now back home, and how those here in America could learn from their experiences and make better choices.
Yeah.
Knowledge is power.
That is true. Knowledge is very much power. And then, like Jenny said, deported is a brand that will die with you, which is true. If you've been deported, even before, just because you were here illegally or in whatever country illegally, once you go back home, it's just that stigma that just stayed with you, no matter what you do. Oh, do you know said boy John was just deported from America? I wonder what kind of crime he do or what does he do? And it's so not true. And the only crime he did is that he was here illegally, or he came on a visa and overstayed because he thought that he could be making a better life. I understand that because it's hard in our country sometimes. And when we come here on a visa, we want to make a better life for our family. And then sometimes things doesn't work out and you end up being
You
a
you
year.
you jumped into a marriage. You jump into a bad marriage
Yes.
because you think that that's the only way you can get papers. And again, we're going to be having a lot more of these topics, ways to migrate into America, and then what to do once you find yourself in this situation where, again, you come in, you think that all I'm dependent on her. And if until my green card come, I'll leave. And then I never leave because she delays my paperwork or she sabotages things,
Yes.
calls the cops on me. I mean, there's so much situations going on. So please, if you know anyone in this situation, share this video. You don't even have to tell them. Just say, hey, I think, just
Watch this
just
video.
watch this, or start planting those seeds, because those people feel alone.
Yes.
They feel marginalized. They feel victimized, and we have to bring them from a place of becoming survivors, surviving these experiences, and coming out of this better than where they see themselves right now.
Yeah, that is true. Because when you go into it, you were in, like we got, like our saying, going from victim to victorious, and that's what we believe. And so we want to say thank you guys for watching, for tuning in and commenting and just showing us a love, and we really appreciate it. Sharing the videos and just supporting us as we continue to just educate our people. Wanna thank you.
Absolutely.
We really do appreciate you guys each and every day.
And that scripture is so much true, as far as our people suffer because of a lack of knowledge.
Yes.
So again, what we want to do with this show, with this topic, is to just share knowledge. Please, if you know anyone who's going through difficult situations, we will be posting some resources on this video as well. And thank you so much for being here with us. Again, we do this podcast in Spanish on Tuesdays, and Thursdays. Today we do it in English as well. So again, we would love to continue to hear from you. We're going to be taking one topic a week for the rest of the year. This is our challenge to us, to discuss things that matter to you. We would love to hear from you about what you want us to talk about, and to continue to have this conversation. And we definitely appreciate it.
Yeah.
We are so grateful for each and every one of you, and we're all